I'm just months away from retirement and need advice getting my portfolio in order. I have been primarily in a 401k and mostly in an S&P 500 index fund. And the question is, do I change that? You'll hear a lot of talk, in articles, books, other YouTube videos about retirees needing to create some sort of retirement paycheck by making investments that generate a lot of income. And so you'll find folks investing in very high yield ETFs. They could be covered call option ETFs, put a lot more than they had while they were working into, say, REITs or high yield bond funds that generate a lot of yield. I don't believe that's necessary, and I often think it's really not the best idea. This is where I believe that there's really no difference between getting money through a dividend or interest and just selling shares. At the end of the day, if you've got $1 million in your IRA and you need to take out $40,000, you take out $40,000. In fact, in an IRA where we don't worry about taxes until we pull the money out, we don't even really think about, should I pull out a dividend? That doesn't really make sense. $1 is $1. You've got $1 million in there. If you take out $40,000, you'll have $960,000 left in there. It doesn't matter if the $40,000 came to the account via a dividend or just market increases, right? That doesn't really matter. Now, in a taxable account, it matters, but again, it matters, in my view, just because of the taxes and how dividends are taxed. And so you'd want to start with the dividends. You'd think of those separately. But again, only from a tax perspective, in my view. Now, I would certainly invest in something broader than just the S&P 500 index. I like to have a broader U.S. market fund. I want to have international stocks at a minimum in the equity portion of the portfolio. I do think some fixed income is important, generally all the time, but certainly in retirement. But in terms of, do you need to change the portfolio in some way so that it generates a lot more in dividends and a lot more in interest than it did during your working years? And my view of that is no. And in fact, when you look at almost all of the papers that deal with safe withdrawal rates, the 4% rule, guardrails, all these sort of retirement spending strategies, I don't know that I can even think of one that said, well, wait a minute, we got to think about dividends and income differently. No, they just look at total return, which includes dividends and interest and changes in the value of the underlying shares. They don't separate it out between dividends and interest on the one hand and increases in the value of the underlying, say, shares on the other. They just look at total return, because that's ultimately what's going to drive the success or failure of a retirement spending plan. So that's my take. Might be a minority view. I don't know.